Joined now by Sourabh Gupta. He's a senior fellow at the Institute for China-America Studies. His think tank in China is out with a report that says China can expect more of this engagement. And of course, Matt is saying this freedom of navigation is going to continue. And the suggestion is to forge stronger relations with neighbors in the region. First of all, do you think they're right about, are we going to see more of these kind of incidents with the Decatur? I mean, there's a chance for miscalculation on both sides, is there?
There is a chance for miscalculation, but I think we are going to see as many incidents, as many FONOPs, freedom of navigation operations, as we've seen in the past, maybe even more. I would say that is kind of driven to an extent by the slide in U.S.-China relations overall has made everything within the U.S.-China relationship that much more controversial, and that's why this has been gotten plucked out. And because of that controversy also, I think on this last incident, the Chinese did approach the American vessel a little too closely and a little too rashly, and so that has created additional tensions.
What about the suggestion of forging stronger relations with neighbors to try and ease some of this? Do you think that's a good suggestion?
It is absolutely a good suggestion. Frankly, the U.S. has certain maritime interests in the South China Sea, primarily navigational interests, but it is not a claimant state out there, and the main disputes out there relate to the claimant states. Now, it so happens that when China has good relations or workable relations with many of these claimant states, the overall tension in the South China Sea tends to subside to an extent. It's when some of these claimant states are unified in their disgruntlement with China and the U.S. joins in the fray at that time is when the relationship, the geopolitics of the South China Sea really sinks. And so it's very important that, for example, the bilateral consultation mechanism meeting, which is going to happen with the Philippines, that those proceed on a successful track.
This report also says anytime China makes an economic, political, or security advance in the disputed waters, it's seen as a challenge to the current U.S.-led order. And I remember covering Obama's pivot to Asia, that a lot of people in China that I spoke to said, this is just all about containment. It's trying to contain China's rise. Again, we're hearing that sort of thing. Talk to me about this tension, and how do you resolve that when you basically you've got a mountain of issues, including the trade dispute, all of this kind of building and building up a kind of tension between the United States and China that we haven't seen in years past.
It becomes very hard to dissociate any one individual issue and kind of inoculate it from the larger tensions. And that's why we're seeing the South China Sea issue also being talked about, and the unsafe encounter which happened recently. But the way for China to move forward on this is, one is have good relations, of the best feasible relations with your neighbors. And China is currently on a very good track, I would say, with the Philippines. I think we are seeing this relationship will, for the next 2-3 years, might go very far in terms of positive outcomes. And that will lower the temperature out here. But it's also important that, yes, extra-regional countries do have certain maritime rights in these waters, and one should not conflate that only through the lens of containment. The problem in this regard arises from the fact that the US speaks in two vocabularies when it talks about these navigational rights. It talks from its perspective. When it does this, it defends its actions by talking in a legalistic term. These are peaceful users of the sea, and that's fair enough. But then when it talks with regard to China, it talks from a political perspective, from a political vocabulary of China militarizing. There's no legal definition of militarization. And so then it becomes apples versus oranges. You really can't have a real honest conversation about this, and that complicates the issue.
Yeah, it inflames things. Thanks so much, Sourabh Gupta. Always a pleasure.